Thank you everyone for coming here tonight. We're here to talk about the proposed KFL LEMA. We've got a few people we'd like to introduce. Mike Myers, DWR. Susan Metzger, KDA. Chris Blytone, is that correct? Nice. Okay. Brownie Wilson's here, KGS. GMD 3, Mark Rude, Jason, Trevor. We got Armando Zarco back there. If you guys, end of the night, if you guys happen to have any, want to see a print or anything, them guys, they can do anything they want for you here tonight on your, what it would look like for you on a possible LEMA scenario. The steering committee, I know everybody, there's a lot of guys planting corn, but they're here this evening also. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to inform and discuss the proposed KFL LEMA and the tools within the KFL to make it a success for any producer. The tools to make the KFL success have been thoughts and ideas from the producers inside the proposed KFL. Their neighbors and friends who all operate inside the KFL. Since about mid-November, we've been basically having meetings about every 2 weeks. As one committee member has stated, we don't agree on every aspect of the proposal, but it's as close as we've come to consensus so far. There's been some thoughts about, some have said, the LEMA is basically taking my property. Well, a LEMA will extend the irrigation for future generations. If we look at the technology, everything, John ever come up with a deal that you don't even have to turn your tractor in anymore. Case H, they have a tractor that you don't even have to be in it, it's going to drive itself. So we got technology also kind of nice to help us with our future water needs that are going to be happening. Proposed LEMA is asking for a minor reduction of irrigation water use of 15%. By doing so, 15% would slowly slow the rate of decline and extend the life of the Ogallala. Tonight, guys, we're going to focus on flexibilities, transfers, 5-year programs. We've got people here tonight to help us walk through this and show each scenario of whether it be the transfer, how the allocations might work over there. But if you got any questions, don't leave. If you have a question, please ask it tonight. Whether it's up front or in the back, please ask any one of them that's here the question.
Thank you. All right, I'm Brownie Wilson. I'm with the Kansas Geological Survey. And my part here is just kind of talk about the conditions and the aquifer and the characteristics of it to make it unique. This is a map that's showing us the 5-year rate of water level change across the entire Ogallala. So we're going from Wichita down here, and then Elkhart, all the way up to Midland, up to northwest Kansas. And so you can just kind of see this spot right here between Garden City and along the Ark River. We've had declines of 30 feet or so in the last 5 years, and that's kind of why this area is being focused on. The KFL boundary then is shown here in the dark black outline, and it basically runs along the Ark River to the south. And there's a reason for that, because that acts as a natural hydrologic barrier, if you will. And it runs just past the 83 highway up to the east over to Lakin, and then around that gray shaded area is the ditch, the ditch company. All those dots you see on there then are what I call the big wells, the wells that have a water right on them. So mostly they're just a dot, it's an irrigation well, but there's different symbols for what the use is, whether it's stock water or municipal or whatnot. But those are all the wells that are in that area. And this is a very unique area of Kansas. There's no other place in Kansas quite like this area right here, because as you don't see a whole lot of wells up here to the north and to the west, and a lot of that is because of the subsurface. What we call the Bear Creek Fault is actually a dissolution zone that runs right along Lake McKinney here on the western side of the area, and that subsurface has dropped down. The bedrock has subsided down below because some of the salt down below got eroded away, and that's why you have that aquifer there. And what's important about that is there's really nobody upstream from it. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. In terms of how water is used within the KFL, this is pretty typical for most of the high plains, most of the Ogallala. Irrigation is the dominant use of water. In this case, 94% of the uses is irrigation use within the KFL boundaries. And then you kind of see a breakdown of how the other ones shake out in terms of their overall percentage. The next big one is municipal at 5%, and the other ones are less than 1%, if you want. Now the water level changes over the last 10 years or so. Again, we've had declines of 70 or so feet in the area here. Lesser declines as you kind of move up to the north, and all those. This map here is all based on those blue dots, which are observation wells that we go out and measure, and Mike's shop goes out and measures typically in January. Month of January during the irrigation season is at the lowest. And with that water use and with that water level change, you can kind of come up with relationships. And so what this is just a graph of where we have the annual water use down here at the bottom, and we're increasing as we go this way. And then over here is just that water level change that we see just within the KFL boundary. And then that's a really strong linear relationship there that we established just between those variables. And this R squared value, all that's saying is, from a statistical standpoint, 83% of the variation that we see in the water level change can be explained by the variations that we see in the annual water usage. That's a really high number. That's a really strong number. I don't know how many of you took statistics in college, but when I did this when I was at K-State, I had it awful. I had like 0.02 something. And, if you get something like that, that's fantastic. That's what you want to see. So the average groundwater use in the KFL boundary area is about 112,000 acre feet. The average decline over the last 10 years has been about 3 feet. And again, that's based on this relationship here. We have a certain year of water use, and what was that decline that year? And so just based on this relationship, we can kind of come up with what-if type examples. If we reduce the water use by 26%, based on this relationship, the numbers this tell us that would give us a stable water level. The 20% reduction, we reduce the decline by 76%, the 10% reduction by 38%. Again, this is not modeling or anything like that. That's just looking at the relationship between the data and water use and water level decline. We have pretty good confidence in that relationship. So we'll talk a little bit about groundwater flows and where they go. This gets a little confusing. I've shown this a couple times, but groundwater behaves the same in the subsurface as it does on top. It's going to flow downhill, the path of least resistance. And so all those, I guess the green triangles now, those are the observation wells, and we took the average January water level. We get these contour lines of what the elevation of the water table is. And it's similar to what the land surface is. And water then is going to flow perpendicular to those lines. And so I kind of put these arrows in there to kind of give you an idea of which way that water is flowing under natural conditions, just the gradient in the winter months. We don't have a whole lot of pumping going on, but typically here you can kind of see the variation then of the Ark River. Along the Ark River to the south of there, the groundwater flows to the south and to the east, and that's pretty typical for a lot of southwest Kansas. Once you get north of the river, though, you can just see those lines. It flows typically west to east, and that's one of the reasons that this boundary line was drawn here for that reason. In terms of overall change, over here on the west side, that really hasn't changed much since the 1940s. If you go back and look at the 1940 elevations, they're pretty similar. What has changed is more on the eastern side with those water level declines. You can kind of see there's a depression now in the water table. And that depression is capturing a lot of the lateral flow, which used to flow out to the east, now comes into that boundary area there. Now, we can't read this very well on the screen, but we try to illustrate, though, how fast is groundwater flow, because there's always a concern, if I'm going to save this water, if I make this effort to save this water, it's just going to flow out underneath it. And so what we did here was we just looked at these sections along the ditch there, and then we're looking at which way does that water flow, again, based on those gradients. And the principles, again, are the same. The steeper that slope is, the greater potential for that water to flow faster. But unlike the surface, we're underground, right? So we're flowing through stuff. And what kind of stuff we're flowing through has a determination of how fast that is. The sands, it's going to flow a little freer. If it's clays, it's going to be a little more restricted, and it kind of depends then on the pressure on what that's pushing. And so when you take those different variables of what the stuff is that water is flowing through, just between these sections here, it's about a foot per day over here, and then it really starts to flatten out, and it's less than a half of a foot per day there. So we're talking about just under natural conditions, not being pumped, just movement of water under the influence of gravity. It'll take about 15 years, 20 years to go a mile. And so that's the point that we're trying to make with this, is that if the water is not used, it's not just going to go flying out and go down to the sand hills to the south or out to the eastern side. It's going to move, but it's going to stay locally for the most part. Again, it kind of depends on what material that aquifer is moving through. And so here's that same set of sections, but we're looking at a profile of it. This then is the land surface on top. This is what the water table was in the pre-development, and there's the Ark River right there, valley. And then here's what our water table is today. And then this is the bedrock. And so you can kind of see how that depression in the bedrock, how it dropped down. That's why we have an aquifer here. And then it's steeper right through here, and so you'll have the faster flow rates on that western side. And then it really starts to flatten out. There's not much of a gradient anymore to push that water. We did the same thing with that going north and south. Again, it's kind of hard to see the actual numbers, but they're in the same order of magnitude. And this is that profile of that running north and south. And what's interesting about this, then here's our land surface, and then the Ark River Valley right here. The pre-development water table, the average water table here in the winter months, and then you see this little hump right here. That's a mound that's directly below the Ark River, and that's why our water levels are controlled north to south. That's why water levels flow south of the river to the sand hills. North of the river, they stay on the north side, and they stay in the ditch service areas. It's all because of that little hump here. It looks kind of small, but that's a 20, 30-foot rise right there within a mile. That's pretty significant. And then this is the bedrock. You can kind of see running north, how it dives down and then down to the sand hills. So it's a lot of saturated thickness down here. And then that's why you have one of the reasons you have the lower yielding wells up to the north. It's just the conditions of the aquifer itself. Now, again, these gradients then, again, I'm telling you that you move about a foot per day and all that stuff. And many people will compare that to pumping. Well, what happens when the well turns on? Or what happens when there's water in the ditch? You see variations in the wells. It's the exact same principles that are involved. I just don't have the data to show that. Not yet, anyways. But when the well is turned on, the water level drops, you just change the gradient. So that's going to increase the flow, or a bunch of water comes into it, you just increase the gradient. It's all the same mechanics, it's just that the characteristics have changed. But we're going to get some more information about that. I was hoping to do this tomorrow, but we're going to have some shipping issues and billing issues, but we're going to put what we call an index well right here, in which that water level will be reported every hour. It'll be online, you can go in there. We work with Hydro Resources to help us get that well set up and spec'd out. And then we'll have some other wells that won't be online in terms of being on the web, but Mike's group's going to go out and put pressure transducers down there. And so what's nice about these wells is you can go on and we have one at the Willis Technology Farm down in the Sand Hills, which is, I think it's somewhere one of those down here. And then we have one in Pasco County. When that big snow event came in, I could see the wells turn off because the water levels responded. They popped right back up because they weren't under the influence of pumping anymore. We'll have that type of information throughout the KFL area here in the coming year. So that's coming. Kind of like Christmas time, you wait for it. But when that comes, you'll be able to get online and actually see the water levels. And then if you see an event happening, you should be able to see the response to the water table that day. Keep on going. You turn on the mic on.
Thanks. Good evening. I'm Mike Meyer. I'm the Water Commissioner here at Garden City with Kansas Department of Ag Division of Water Resources. So I want to kind of briefly walk through some of the benefits of getting into the local enhanced management area. Obviously, we want to conserve and extend the area. And as we do that, we think, okay, I'm going to get cut back, and so I'm going to have to change my whole operation plan. I'm going to have to make farming changes, see what it's going to do to the economy. And one of the benefits, or several of the benefits of having a local enhanced management areas, we can build in flexibilities so that you plan your future. These flexibilities can allow you to manage year to year, just as long as and you'd be given an allocation over this proposed 5-year period. And so you're not restricted per year. Let's just say if we take a reduction off of our water right, automatically we think that, okay, if I'm pumping 200 acre feet today, then tomorrow I have to drop down to 150 acre foot that year. What we can do with these local enhanced management areas is give you a 5-year allocation, so you have a pot of water for 5 years, and that way you can manage year in and year out of how you're going to use that 5-year allocation. So you're not set at a reduced annual quantity, you're just set at a 5-year allocation. So after 5 years, you're just going to be budgeted, but you're not necessarily budgeted per year. And so that's one of the flexibilities and benefits with the local enhanced management area is if you need your normal allocation of what you have today for this coming year, that's fine. You're just working towards that end budget of that 5-year allocation. Let's say it continues to rain and snow and this is going to be a wet year. Well, any unused water is now banked for the next 4 years, or whatever 5-year period we're in. And so that 5-year allocation can be your drought plan. If we run into 2 years of drought, you borrow from the future out of that 5-year allocation. You can still pump your authorized allocation today, or we can even allow a term permit to exceed your original allocation. Again, just as long as you have that in budget in mind. So drought years you can borrow, wet years you can bank. And so the end of 5 years, that's your magic number for your allocation that you need to keep in mind. And so we feel like that's a huge benefit to let you manage. Corn prices, if they stay low, or if they shoot up and you want to grow corn, well, you got that budget within that 5-year period to work with. And so that's what that's one key issue we want to really make sure you understand, that you're not limited per year, you're just limited after 5 years, and let you manage that water year in and the year out. One of the other, or a few of the other benefits is temporary transfers. So let's say you have wells that are piped together by underground pipe, and you usually operate those as a unit. It takes 2 wells to keep a pivot pressurized up, or you just run these 2 wells a certain way. And then if you're given an allocation, you might think, well, now I have to change the operation of those 2 wells to run that pivot, because now I have to slow this one down, or I won't have enough days of pumping for this well. Well, we can allow consolidated well units, so as long as you have wells plumbed together, we can give you one allocation for those wells that are plumbed together. So it can be 2 or more wells, as long as they're physically tied together. So if you have 4 wells on a section of ground, they're all plumbed together to run a pivot or multiple pivots. You can have an allocation for those 4 wells for that section of ground. So now you can manage those wells under that management unit and not be tied to a specific allocation, as long as you don't exceed the normal water rate. So that's a benefit to help you manage those wells. Another one is allowing transfers. The steering committee thought it might be good to allow some transfers across the area. One, if we're going to set a budget for the area and save water in the long term, why not allow some transferring of water rights across the area as long as we meet our goal? And that way, let's say one well or a farm may be a little short of water. We can allow transfers within 2 miles and allow you to allow water to be transferred from well to well within 2 miles, as long as the well you're transferring to never exceeds your original 5-year amount of water. Over 2 miles, the steering committee thought, let's go ahead and allow a transfer up over 2 miles across this area, as long as the well that's receiving the transfer doesn't exceed its recent historic use. And the historic use that that we're pointing to is 2006 to 2015. So whatever that 10-year average is, we want to lock that in as your historic use. And so allows transfers over 2 miles as long as the well receiving that transfer never exceeds what's been pumped within the last 10 years. So we come to keep the system whole. We don't create problems and allow those ownership agreements. It doesn't have to necessarily be just your wells that you want to transfer from. You have a well north of Garden and another well 2 miles away, that's fine. But if different owners agree to work together to allow some transfers, why not let that happen? As long as we have those agreements in place and however the arrangements work out. So if I'm not going to use my water for 1 year, and the guy needs water for his well for that year, I may want to apply for a transfer to transfer my portion of water right to his well, as long as he doesn't exceed the limits that's built into the plan. Any questions along those lines? We talked about those. Yes.
Explain the within 2 miles, not to exceed annual authorized quantity. Does that mean 2 acre-foot?
Well, it means whatever your water right is today. So if you have a 208-foot water right, then it can't exceed that 208-foot water right. And that's a lot of the misconception. Not everybody has 2 acre-foot per acre water right. I mean, water rights were developed differently. They were allocated different amounts. That's just the maximum that law allowed that you can apply for and try to develop up to 2 acre-foot per acre of authorized acres underneath your water right. There's not a whole lot of water rights that have that authorization. It's just the cap that you could develop. But yeah, it just depends on your particular water right, what your authorized amount is, and then if you want to apply for a transfer, you can't exceed what you have today, or you can't exceed what you averaged the last 10 years.
And 15% will come off that 2 acre-foot.
However, the plan comes together as far as what is the conservation component that the plan gets approved at or drafted at. But yeah, there's been talks of taking a 15% reduction off of that historic use. So that's your allocation, and you can transfer that 15% less allocation around, but you can transfer up to your original water right. If that answers your question. So if you have a 100 acre-foot water right, you take a 15% reduction and have 75 acre-foot, or 85 acre-foot, whatever that math is. You can transfer up to you can transfer 85 acre-foot to a well, but let's say that well today has 100 acre-foot. You can't exceed that original 100 acre-foot to be pumped out of that well after you transfer. That's clear to me. And we do have an example of some numbers there of how that would work. It is on the survey handout that's on the table. These examples are on that if you want to take some time and look through the actual numbers. That give an example of 2 wells and what they're authorized for today, what they could be allocated for tomorrow, what's their historic use, what's their authorized use, and if they go with the consolidated well unit or the transfer within 2 miles or transfer over 2 miles, you can see real numbers there to see how those transfers would work. So as far as the flexibilities and transfers, another benefit of having local enhanced management. Oh, yes, sir.
If you've used 2 acre-foot historically, you are wasting water.
In opinion, yes. I mean, you have.
Well, if that's all you're going to get, cut 15%. That's ridiculous. You're not getting cut at all. Nobody uses 2 acre foot that I know of,
There-
unless you're wasting water.
And of course, the law allows you to use your water right as long as you don't waste water. And so,
I have a lot of 2 acre foot and have never used that much.
right, that's why we want to go off of historic usage. If we're going to make a savings in this area, just like Brownie showed, here's what we've been using, here's what we've been declining. If we can budget ourselves off of historic use, we can make a big difference rather than
Well,
trying to.
if you conserve, you're getting cut. That's not fair.
And we'll have discussions here in the future, or in the later presentation, and talk about options for passive conservation.
But it's still, if you're letting somebody use their past record, I've always been told that if these over pumpers were going to be cut a lot more than they think.
Again, we're looking at 2006 to 2015, whatever.
And there's a lot of over pumping.
Yeah, over pumping in our eyes is going past your water.
Oh, well,
Of course, they
that's
get
not
credit for
necessarily
that.
true.
But yeah, I mean, we'll evaluate that use, and there's options to come in and appeal your allocations to you. Again, it's kind of hard to define what waste is, because every operation is different, every personal goals and managing their farm is different. Another benefit for a local management area is cost share. If we're going to conserve and extend the aquifer and try to make a difference, if there's any cost share funds that's available through state or federal programs, those funds are going to be targeted to areas like this. We want to help push those funds to implement technology to help you use better use of that water. And if you already made a commitment to conserve water and to budget yourself, that's where that funding needs to go, and to help you move to that next step of doing the latest technology to help you farm better, to help you utilize that water better, and so that is a benefit. So those funds will go to these areas. And currently in the state, we do have one local enhanced management area up in Sheridan County, northwest Kansas. They're in the 5th year, and it was a 5-year plan, and they saw the benefits and the success, so they already requested the chief engineer to extend it for another 5 years. And their plan, or after this current plan is done, and they re-up for another 5 years, they built in that if you save in this first 5-year LEMA area, you should allow to be having rollover credits for the next 5-year LEMA area. And so that's something that the steering committee has thought about and want to build into this plan, saying let's just try it for 5 years. If this would gain traction and get approved. And then after 5 years, if you saved and didn't use all of your allocation, if there's a renewal, to allow you to roll over that unused water for the next term and get that credit. And so that's another benefit, as long as we can continue to save water and push it towards the future for when we really need to have it. As long as we're saving water, why not have that credit and build that bank account of water when it's needed? And if you never use it, that's water saved, and that's a plus. So allow that rollover. So those are some brief benefits for the local management area. And we'll be around to take questions later. Yeah.
What about wells in the northern part of Kearny County that have been pumping for way beyond your historical use? They've been in the Water Rights Conservation Program with you guys, in which we signed up an agreement that said we would not pump them.
Right.
If you use 06 and 15, there was 0. So is our new allotment going to be 0? Are we going to lose that water?
I think that's our next section.
Chris will cover that.
Yep. So perfect timing, Mike. Anything else real quick or later? Thank you for your time.
Thanks. Well, good evening. My name is Chris Badel. I'm with the Kansas Department of Agriculture's Division of Water Resources out of Manhattan. It's nice to be here this evening. I have the pleasure of walking you through some of the options for calculating the allocations that the steering committee has come up with for this proposed LEMA. And right now, there's three that they're really talking about. And they go in order of complexity and sophistication. Throw an option A, option C there. So I'll just go through them. First is the flat 15% cut. And as we've been talking about, we're talking about a water use history from 2006 to 2015. You know, add the water use data up, divide it, and get your average use. So this water right in particular has an average of 164. You apply the 15%, which is 85% of the 164, and that equals, it comes out to 140 acre feet per year. Multiply that by 5. You're talking about a 699 acre foot allocation to use over the 5 years. Now, if you use it in 140 acre foot increments, you can use up to your authorized quantity, your current authorized quantity in any given year, as long as over the 5 years you don't exceed the 699 acre feet. That's the basics. That's the one I love to explain. And these next two, not saying anything bad about the options, but just they're a little bit more complicated. So what we've done here is we tried to equalize them all so that they give the same effective cut. And I should have mentioned, excuse me, that this one turns out, even though it's a 15% flat cut, when you add those savings up for all the water use in this proposed area, that turns out to be about an 11% overall cut. And the reason it's different is because vested rights are not included in this proposal. So there's quantity there that's vested. You have to take that out. So you get this effective cut of 11%. And so to make these options look equal, we had to adjust them a little bit. I'll put it that way. And hopefully that will become a little more clear as I walk through this example. This option B is the sliding scale based on comparison of historical use authorized quantity. So we're still using the historical record, the same 2006 to 2015 data, the same thing, but we're taking an added step of saying, all right, well, how did this water use compare to their authorized quantity? That now becomes a factor. So if you used 164 acre feet on average of your 258 acre foot per year authorized quantity, see that's 63.5%. All right, so this is where it gets a little tricky. We had to apply a 24% factor to the overall quantity to make it come down to 11%. That's the tricky bit. That's what makes this example a little bit hard to explain. But anyway, so 164 times the conservation factor, 139 acre feet per year times 5, 695 acre feet in your 5-year allocation. Recall the last example was 699 acre feet. This is about the same in this particular case, but this would be different. The closer to your authorized quantity you use, the more the cut is. That's the way this works. And if you use less, if your average is quite a bit less than your authorized quantity, your cut is correspondingly less. But to make the 11% work, we have to do this 24% across the board. All right. And then the last one, the option C, the sliding scale based on comparison of maximum use to authorized quantity, or pump test. This gets a little bit away from the historical use bit. This concentrates on the capacity of the well to pump. And so the idea here is they go through your water right record, but they're not looking for your average use, they're looking for your maximum pumpage. And then the ratio between your maximum pumpage and your authorized becomes the factor that everything is based on. And again, to make these things equal down to the 11% effective cut, we had to do 40.5% of those maximums across the whole area. So the allocation in this case, you get this 36.9% conservation factor, and you apply it to the maximum annual quantity that was ever pumped. You get your allocation. Turns out to be 148 acre feet per year times 5-year allocation of 741 acre feet. And the option in this case, if that didn't work out for you, you didn't feel like this was a representative number, then you could always do a pump test at your particular pump, find out how much your pump could yield in gallons per minute, do the math. This is 250 gallons per minute. This is per day times 120 days divided by the number of gallons in an acre foot, and then times 5, and gives you an allocation of 665 acre feet. So those are the 3 examples, and I could probably use some work on simplifying those last 2, and I'll work on that. So this is this is kind of a layout of the 3 different options we just talked about: option A, option B, and option C. With 3 different water rights. One water right representing a high use, close to their authorized quantity. One kind of middling, kind of typical of what we would see, and one fairly low. And you can see this high one, 27 inches per acre. That's what they're using. 16 inches per acre on the medium, and 7.3 on the low. And the chart here just shows how these options would work out for these particular water rights. Flat 15% across here, the A. And the sliding scale based on historical use. Close to the same, I know that when you get up into these quantities, 100 acre feet, that's quite a bit. It's over 5 years, so not sure that's a lot. But it's surprising how in all these, at least to me, my observation was that these are all, fairly close. There's not a whole lot of distance between them. But, anyway. Stop me anytime if you have any questions, except on those other ones with the percentage stuff. I'll have to defer you to Trevor. Okay. So as we go through these options, we want to see, well, how close are these to achieving our goals? And so maximum percent reductions that anyone would take are laid out here. Option A, 15% is really all anybody's going to take, because that's the base there. Option B would require that some of the users, some of the highest users, take a 24% reduction to get to the same overall area-wide reduction. And option C, there are a few that would take, a great reduction. Oh yeah, that's right. I think we got the wrong number in here. This should be 25. This was tough. Sorry about that. So this should be about 25. So these two roughly equal, and then this one 15%. And this is kind of the same thing. It lays out the number of reductions over 30% for the flat 15 is 0. Reductions 20 to 30% for the flat 15 is 0. 10 to 20%, well, should be most of them, because that's where 15 lies, right between there. And then we have reductions less than 10%. There's quite a few of those, and I think that has to do with the way that we figure the average water use, and whether or not we included zeros, whether we filled those zeros with averages, or for the purposes of this demonstration, and that can be done in different ways. And then we have those bar graphs for the other ones. As you see, there's quite a few with some cuts in the 20 to 30% range, and then sliding scale for max use, and lots of folks reduce less than 10%. That's all about the options. So if you have any questions about the options, you can talk about them. And the point was brought up, and it is brought up a lot, due consideration for past conservation. If you do have water use history that doesn't cover that period, for instance, there's several things that we can do that are being considered for doing. We can use, if you do have some of a record, we can try to average without zeros. Do a pump test, see what the pump is capable of, and take that times an irrigation season. There's also the NIR, the net irrigation requirement for corn. That's always an option to put in there. And there's an example here, just of, here's a water right record. It's got some zeros. One of the options we could do is just average it without the zeros, and it's 115. We could take that pump test and multiply it by the gallons per day and 1440 acre feet. And anyway, end up with 133 and stick that in there. If that's what your pump will yield. And then we could apply the NIR. None of this has been decided yet. So if you're in a conservation program, if you have equipment failure, if you crop damage, whatever the case, that you have a spotty water use or no water use history for that particular time, by law we have to consider it. We will put something fair in there. I think that's about it. Any questions about that? Susan?
Well, I'm Susan Metzger. I'm also with the Department of Ag out of Manhattan, and I think I have kind of the last couple of more technical slides before I turn it back to Dwayne and Randy to kind of close it out and take more questions from the group. But one of the things that the steering committee had talked about when they were first putting this idea together is sort of a timeline. When would they like to have the LEMA in place? And so they had set a goal of having it effective in 2018, which is pretty aggressive, but also achievable. But as we've gone through some meetings like this and really collected some diverse ideas, the steering committee really realized there's value of maybe spending some time and really weighing all those options carefully before pitching the final LEMA proposal. But then there's also several folks within the area that want to do something now. You know, they want to do something yesterday. And so we came up with the idea of offering up an opportunity to do an individual water conservation area for those folks that are interested in conserving today. And so if you're not familiar with the distinction between a water conservation area and a LEMA, the LEMA comes forward from a groundwater management district to the chief engineer and says, for this particular region, we want to implement these corrective controls to achieve a certain goal. With a water conservation area, it can be much smaller than that. An individual water right owner or a group of water right owners can come together and say, this is the conservation plan I'd like to put in place. This is my goal. I'm willing to reduce my water use by this amount. And in exchange for that, I'd like certain flexibilities just for my operation. It's 100% voluntary. So if at any given time that person decides that WCA is just not working for me at all, they can back out of it. It's just an agreement between them and the chief engineer. And so it's really creative. It's got a lot of flexibilities to it, and it's really catching on throughout the Ogallala as more and more folks are starting to realize, I think I could see a WCA working for my operation in this way. So the folks within the steering committee thought, all right, well, maybe I'd like to go ahead and enroll in a WCA today while we're working on this local enhanced management area. And so we thought, well, you know, if there are some folks today that really want to step up and do that type of conservation in advance of something as formal as LEMA, well, there should be some incentives for them to do that. And so some of the ideas that we've come up with, I'll share with you, but I do want to point out a couple of pretty important things. I think reiterating that it's voluntary is always an important thing to keep in mind. And folks also sometimes think, well, I don't want to enroll in a water conservation area because I don't want to affect the value of my water right. I don't want to affect the potential if I sell it to somebody else. Nothing you do in a water conservation area affects your base water right. So if you decide at the end of the day that WCA doesn't work for you and you cancel it, you revert back to your base water right. Nothing you do in a WCA impacts that base water right. And you also get to then determine the length of time. And we have quite a variety. We have some WCAs that are just for 3 years. We have some that are thinking they'd like something quite long-term, maybe 10 plus years. Again, that is entirely up to the individual developing that conservation agreement. So here's some examples of the flexibilities that we were thinking about if somebody within the KFL boundary wanted to enroll in a WCA in advance of the LEMA. And the numbers probably aren't as important, but again, they're in that survey if you really wanted to dig into the numbers. The idea being that you say, I'm going to do a WCA in advance of the LEMA for 5 years. And we took the most simple option that Chris described, the flat 15%. So you come in, you look at your historical water use from 2006 to 2015, and you take the average, and you take 15% off of that, and then you create your 5-year allocation. You've enrolled in this 5-year water conservation area, and you're moving along. And let's say you've made it into the 2nd year of your water conservation area, and the KFL LEMA is effective. It's put into place. And so at that point, you get to choose whether or not you want to continue with your LEMA, you want to jump into, continue with your own WCA, jump into the LEMA. Whichever of the two has a greater conservation potential is the one that trumps the other. But if you've gotten to that year 2 within your WCA, been pretty conservative, you should have some opportunities to take advantage of that. So we had 2 things in mind. If you pre-enroll in a WCA before the LEMA, and the LEMA comes into place, you can take 10% of 1 year of the WCA allocation and roll that over into your LEMA. So you get an automatic kind of bump up in your LEMA allocation. And also, if during your first few years of the water conservation area, you actually use less than what 1/5 of your agreement would have been, then you should be able to roll over a portion of that unused quantity too. So in this scenario that we've talked about, you're going to roll over 10% of your unused quantity. So you're in a pre-WCA, the KFL LEMA comes into place, you automatically get to roll over 10% of 1/5 of your WCA allocation, plus 10% of your unused quantity. So it's just a little bit of an added incentive to those folks that really are interested in doing something today, while keeping the conversation going for the LEMA. So again, all these numbers are in the handout there, so you can kind of dig through and see them. And also, Armando and Trevor are here today. If you wanted to spend some time tonight just reviewing your own water use history, whether it be that you might be interested in this WCA kind of agreement, or you just want to see how those 3 options that Chris outlined might impact your own operation if the LEMA came into place. They're available to do that tonight, to print things out so you can take it home and kind of think it through with your family, or you can make appointments with them at any point in time to come in and do that same type of exercise. So with that, we'll see if Dwayne and Randy just want to talk a little bit about sort of where we go from here.
Does anybody have any questions about thoughts or ideas, or heck yes or heck no? Anyone? That's what this discussion is for, get your guys' input.
On your third option with the pump test, has there been any consideration for limiting when that pump test can take place?
That's been going back and forth, might actually be.
I think there'd be some guidelines there, so we're not abusing the good times of the aquifer, not taking in consideration the bad times. As far as a winter test, summer test, this or that, but yeah, we have some guidelines.
I mean, after this, we kind of thought we planned the next meeting, and it's hard to, it's a busy time of year for everyone. We thought, we might even try some type of workshop, but we had Beef Empire Days coming up first week in June, so that's kind of hitting with all the events they got. So it'd be kind of tough to do to plan our next meeting. When we do have the questionnaires back there, kind of a survey, please do take it home. Has anybody got any thoughts at all about what they think of this proposed LEMA?
And I know everybody's concerned about the aquifer and everything like that. And I know at our last meeting, I believe the engineer up here said that the reason why this LEMA this area was because of 8% decline. But also though, at the same time, you said on the south side, we had areas that were 70% decline. If this program is so good, why isn't this being considered through the whole GMD 3?
That's not my place, Larry. This is kind of our neighborhood. We got the guy showed you in D3. If you want to ask him to.
I'd be glad to respond to that. Larry, first of all, there hasn't been the local leadership in some areas like there is today in this area. When I say local leadership, what this is a discussion of a strategic plan to begin reducing in a way that's as agreeable as you all can establish it. We've had conversation in other areas of southwest Kansas, and there's a lot of water being pumped, as you know. A lot of equities, a lot of interests. We're kind of hoping that this discussion will help provide sort of an example, because it's new. It's just new. It's very different than just water rights and first in time and shut off the juniors and some of that kind of concept. It's really meant to be more community friendly and, if you will, community building for the future. But you're going to have different hydrology in different areas. And so the discussion is a little different in different areas. But it does take that local leadership. The hope is it will happen in other areas.
Then one other question, I know I don't want to put her in the spot, but I would like to know a little more about if we start cutting our water, what the insurance company is going to do. And Holly, I don't know if you know any more.
Yeah, I can. So we've been working with RMA, and they developed a limited irrigation crop insurance option. Thus far, prior to 2017, it was only allowed in Sheridan 6 LEMA. That was the only LEMA prior to this. And what that is they have these different data tables that are put together to try to estimate what yield reduction or what your coverable yield would be for different reduction scenarios. We've ran some of the numbers in this area, and it's basically some of the higher usage people. They can take this 15% and there won't be a insurable yield reduction. On some of the others, it's going to be kind of water rate dependent on what that yield reduction would be. But there is another crop insurance option that's out there. For 2017, we have corn and soybean for 47 counties. So we're good there. We've been having conversations with the regional office for RMA. They're really willing to work with us on kind of trying to take whatever records you guys have for water use and trying to use those to kind of get policies that'll work for you. Us at the water office, we won a grant from them to kind of build some crop insurance tools to try to, the calculation process is right now a little cumbersome for your crop insurance agent, so we're trying to kind of streamline that process a little bit. But yeah, so there's a crop insurance option that is available, and we have people using it.
Good question, Larry, because we don't want to get into LEMA and have issues arise. I think we can build some things in pre-LEMA to help with insurance, and there's guidelines. Good question.
Up on the website, when we do have our next meeting, though, guys, we have the steering committee. It's always been open to the public. Anybody can kind of know whether you're a farmer, businessman out here. It's open. We're looking for any input. Next best idea. I mean, we're still working on this. Where do we go with this? I'm doing WCA. I mean, before this, we looked around the state. There's WCAs going on. We have the sharing it there too with the LEMA, but it's time to start doing something. Whether it's voluntary. This is WCA makes it. You can get out, get in, but it starts you working with the process too. That's why it just takes just a few minutes. You'll be able to see what what it would be like being at that, just see, or whatever scenario you want to run, flat, the slide. That's what these guys are here for tonight. If the leak, go ahead, sir.
Well, it seems to me that a lot of the LEMA strategy is contingent upon the 1 foot a year release. Which, I mean, that makes the water rather static. Is the idea correct? Right. I mean, if that's not true, then having a LEMA isn't very practical. So, what's happened up north? I mean, as they've had their LEMA enforced, or what are they seeing? Is there data that you can share with what's been happening to the water up there?
I don't have any data on the slide, but we ran similar regression lines like this up there in the sugar pits. And they were a little more tight in the middle. We had a couple, 2009 was their wet year, and 2012, everybody's dry year that year. And we ran this relationship before the LEMA was in place, and we had a R-square 0.7 or 8. It was another goodie. And then when you could see, after the LEMA went in, all their water use and their water level declines fell up here. You know, so one, that gives confidence that this relationship was meaningful. But you could see when they reduced the water usage, you know, their water usage was down here, that moved their water level decline. And the first 3 years all fell up on that upper end of the line, almost just right in line. It was great. Last year, not this last year, the year before, their water levels in the LEMA actually rose up. And it didn't flow away. It stayed there and it came up. That hadn't happened in decades. In the Sheridan 6 area of Kansas, it's right up here. Make sure I'm right here. It's right there. And it's always been the leader in terms of the decline of the county, decline of the region. Since that LEMA has been in place, they've fallen in line with the county average or they peaked it. So they were so encouraged they signed up for it.
I mean, where we're at, look at it. I mean, we've got the highest declines. We're not going to be able to keep withdrawing it like we're going to. And, you know, like we had one producer said multiple times, it's just 5 years. You know, you can always punt. In the 5 years, you like it, do something different. Yes, sir.
I'm going to ask this the right question. I don't have a dog in this fight, but I mean, it all sounds good to me. That the gentleman, the Kansas Geological Survey showed a slide where you had your water table. Then he showed the direction of the water movement, and normally it moves west to east. Is that correct? We're just seeing this area right here. What happens down in closer to Haskell County, Seward County? Which way does the water move? Because Oklahoma and Texas, they're pumping big time. So if you're pumping water, then it's going to move, as he mentioned, it's going to move faster in one direction. So if our neighbors to the south aren't in any kind of a LEMA program or water conservation, we're saving it for them? Is that what we're doing?
No, we're saving it. I'll two parts. Don't let me forget the Oklahoma part. Don't let me forget. I'll do something first. We're talking about where these flow lines are going. Even if you shut off all the wells up here, nobody's proposing that. And if you just did, again, it's going to take decades for this to fill in and for that water to leak out the sides. I mean, granted, the closer you are, you're going to have more response and whatnot. But, you know, the core of that area, the biggest challenge in keeping this water here is whether or not it's used locally. That's the number one challenge of having the water leave this area. And the bigger question, I have a map of that. I'm sure it's not in this PowerPoint. We have a map of that. Most of it's south and east. But then when you get down to Haskell County, Stevens, Seward, along that county line, it's almost straight west to east. And you don't, if there was a big gradient pole from Oklahoma, you would see that those arrows would bend that way, and they don't. They run almost straight west to east. Now, again, that's a regional flow. There was issues, I don't know if it was Elkhart, or I think it was Elkhart. Somebody put an irrigation well 90 feet from one of their municipal wells, right across the line. And, okay, there's going to be an impact there. You can't deny that. I think they since removed that well. It's not being in operations anymore. So there is, for some big challenges, well to well like that, but regionally, yeah, they're not taking that water. Again, that's what makes this area so unique is there's nobody really up here, to affect the water coming in. There's no other place in Kansas quite like this.
We're just trying to build up our area.
Right. And there's another suggestion. Maybe it'll be a temptation for you to come to another public meeting. We'll show some other stuff here that deals with water quality. That has been going on for years and years, and how that's migrated through the system. It hasn't migrated down here like you would think it would if it was flowing as fast as people think it does. It's all been staying up in this certain area here. I think that's pretty telling in itself.
Is that that 30-foot hump we were talking about?
Well, that's related. There's a reason that hump is there because of that river. And so that just builds up that, even if there's not water flowing in the Ark River, it acts as an enhanced recharge area. That's where runoff goes into the sandy. Typically, for valleys like that have, order of magnitude, 10 times higher recharge rates than the uplands do. And so that's why that hump builds up. And it's been there, for a long, long time.
Thank you.
Don, when you called me a couple weeks ago, when we talked about the WCA, I thought you were going to tune me out. Talking about the WCA versus the LEMA. As the talks have progressed, everybody just kept saying, well, I'll do it if the next guy's doing it. I'll do it if the next, it just keeps coming to that all the time. Well, that's where the WCA is great, that's where the LEMA is better. It's our entire KFL, our community type group, That's kind of where we've got to it, those talks.
Well, there's no question we need to do it.
Thank you.
But it looks to me like the Sheridan 6 plan is better. Just cap it at a certain level. Say you capped it at the average right now. How much would the average cut those that are above the average? How much water would we save by doing that? What is the average? No, down. Just cap it at the average it is right now. Per inch per acre. Like on your 578 irrigated acres.
Well, no, just a quick comment there. This area averages 14.5 inches.
14,
per
okay.
acre across the
So
country.
if you cut it to 14.5 inches, how much would it save?
Well, none, because that's current use.
But no, that's the average. There is a lot above average.
Yeah, Trevor, didn't we?
We thought the same, about 11%.
Yeah, the steering committee had that scenario ran, and it's still about 11% savings.
Okay, if
It's
we
just a matter of how you
cut it to the average, then
cut off the pie.
that would get your cut. I see nothing wrong with that.
I think my proposal was, or our proposal was, everybody has skin in the game. I think 15% got skin in the game for most folks, rather than the upper third.
Well, it worked in Sheridan.
Well, that was Sheridan. I think their disparity between wells.
That's the point, Randy, and it did work really well for Sheridan because there wasn't a lot of diversity in their use. And there is quite a bit of diversity here. They don't have the 24-inch users up there.
Well, I have a lot of diversified ground, and it'll all fit.
Guys, anybody like to see where it goes from here? Any ideas that anybody would like to put forth and see what maybe, anything that you think we may not be looking at, but we should be looking at?
surveys back there. But please take them back. Yes.
Do you have a deadline for when you want those surveys back?
Friday afternoon, I don't know.
Like within a month or so before the.
Yeah, we use it before the next meeting. You know, take them home. Don't let them on your pickup decks. Don't let them fade. Anything like that.
And you can complete it online too if you'd like.
Yes, sir.
Have you guys put any thought into how do you prove that you were saving water? You said don't take it into consideration. How do you prove that you didn't have to pump it? That don't need it, so I didn't pump it. How do you prove that? If you've been saving water, you're gonna have to take your cake and eat it. That's all you're gonna do.
Yeah, so last year, 2015, when the statute got passed, the chief engineer must give due consideration for reductions in water use in the past that result in saving water. That if there's a program like this in the future, we have to consider that. So if you conserved in the past, if we can show that, we have to give due consideration if we get into a LEMA, if we get into a water conservation area. So that's just the communication back and forth, that if you feel like you conserve and you got information to show it, or if you're in a state program that required the wells to be shut off, there's the proof. You got a recognized conservation land. But yeah, your records, you can bring to us. Part of this plan is there's an appeals process and a review committee for those appeals. So you begin an allocation, and you don't like it or feel like it doesn't fit you because you conserved, come to that appeal committee, bring your records. That committee can review that and work through a few options that we can point to that if you fit that past conservation mode, do a pump test, take a smaller average of years, use net irrigation requirements for corn for the county you're in, and plug in numbers to get a fair average since you did have documentation and justification to be conservative. So yes, we have to give consideration to past conservation, and that's a law.
How do you prove that?
Right.
How do I show you that I shut my pump off?
One scenario
Somebody
is
else ran through the rain, so something will water on it.
so one scenario for an example, if you come in and say, look, I only pumped this much because I chose to. One thing to do is look at your neighbors. Your neighbors use twice as much. That's proof. That's just an example of those type of things. Look at the pump test. Look at, gee, I grew wheat every year. I could have grew corn. I grew wheat. That's just a decision I made to use less water. I use dishwater instead of groundwater. Yeah, it just depends on what you have and just work through that conversation. But again, you just need to stress that chief engineers are mandated to take consideration into any past conservation programs like this.
Any more questions? Chris or Susan, anybody want to add anything? Trevor, or show that spreadsheet, man? Guys, you got, like I say, if you know your water out order, just they'll be able to find it. Just if you want to run them up, it might look like they can put them up for you, take it home while you're here. Next meeting we have, it'll be up on the website. We'll let everybody know what it is. But do we have anything? Well, thank you everyone for coming tonight. Appreciate everything. Thank you.